Rebel Moon Part 2 review. I was hoping that Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, would fix the issues that Rebel Moon Part 1 had in terms of characters not having any personality whatsoever. I mean, I don't know why I was surprised, but Part 2 didn't do anything to fix that. In fact, all Part 2 was was really the third act, because Rebel Moon, I think, should have been one movie. It should have just been one thing. Cut out all the unnecessary flashbacks, cut out all the elongated scenes, trim them down, and then you could have had this be one movie that was 3 hours long, which would probably be kind of satisfying. It wouldn't be perfect, but at least it would kind of feel a little bit like Rogue One. Like, at least that movie like had pretty good characters. Like, you could tell who they were via the character interactions, whereas Rebel Moon Part 2, they didn't have any character interactions whatsoever. So when someone died, you just didn't care, because you're like, well, I barely know anything about them other than the flashback scene that they had, and that was it. This was just an excuse to have a big 2 hour battle. It wouldn't have been 2 hours if they cut out all of the slow motion. Like, I know Zack Snyder loves that stuff, but sometimes it was quite unnecessary. It was just a nothing experience for me. I would love to see a fan edit where they truncated it all into one story. It would have been so much better. The romance in this had no chemistry whatsoever. I've seen dead bodies have more chemistry. Like, I just don't know as to why they thought it was a good idea to include this romance that just absolutely didn't work. Anthony Hopkins robot, like, what was going on there? Like, why all of a sudden he's just like the Batman of robots and whooping ass? I'm just like, what is this? What is going on? I feel like the franchise is dead. And at the end, they had the audacity to set up a third movie. Like, why? Why keep it simple? Like, this was a rejected Star Wars idea that Zack Snyder had. And I'm just kind of like, I see why they rejected it 100% if this is what the result was going to be. But he should have really just simplified everything, that had good pacing. If the story had good pacing and that kind of stuff, then Rebel Moon as a concept would have worked. You start off simple and then you get more complex as you go on. Man, it's just such a frustrating experience watching this movie. Like, I only think you should watch it if you've seen the first one, just to complete the two. Other than that, if you've never seen Rebel Moon, I mean, I wouldn't really recommend it. But at the same time, I am the kind of guy who says, look, you've got to watch something in order to really have an opinion on it. The action was pretty decent, but who in the hell wants to watch a sword fight entirely in slow motion? That was an awful idea. I love speed in my sword fights when I watch them. I just don't understand where that thought came from, and it just made the sword fight so boring. Bits of the battle were alright, but there's nothing here that I've not seen before. There was some, nice frames and stuff like that. Is Zack Snyder, but overall, I was just watching it just to get through it. Like I said, there was barely any plot here, and it is the lack of any personality for the characters that makes this so hard to watch. The best character in it was Ed Skrine's character, chewing all his dialogue and all that kind of business, quite over the top, which was probably the most enjoyable part, but everyone else was barely given anything to do. So I feel Rebel Moon is like the brand new big sci-fi franchise, hasn't really worked, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess that there are some hardcore Zack Snyder fans that believe that this is good, and they're welcome to it. That's their opinion. That's fine, but I don't think Rebel Moon has worked at all.